Launching and growing a successful trucking company is no easy task. It takes great drivers, it takes great customer service, but it also takes a great understanding of your numbers. Now in this video, I'm going to give you a high-level view of the numbers that you should master before launching your trucking business. Now the first thing I want to mention is that I put trucking companies into two distinct categories. First, we have an owner-operator that really intends to remain a one-person trucking company forever. And then two, we have an owner that wants to grow beyond a single truck and beyond a single driver. Now, if you're simply looking to become an owner-operator and need some help with projections, feel free to reach out to us at support@ProjectionHub.com. But in this video, I'm going to focus on building a trucking company beyond just the owner-operator level. So it really all comes down to your sales, your gross profit margin, your overhead expenses, and your cash flow. And as you'll see, there's a whole bunch of levers we can try to pull to impact these numbers. But let's start with sales. Now for a trucking company, there are really two types of work that you can do. You can do dedicated routes or OTR, over the road, or also known as spot freight. Now each type really has its pros and cons. Dedicated routes, where you likely have a contract in place with your customer, really helps you budget and understand exactly how much revenue you'll be able to generate each month. Whereas the over-the-road OTR jobs, you actually may earn a higher rate per mile, and you may even be able to run more miles per month, but you're also running the risk of having a slow month. So my advice, build your company on dedicated routes if you're able to, so that you can build a strong financial foundation for your company, and then use the spot freight market as an opportunity to take on extra work as you're available, or as your team of drivers have extra capacity. So for example, if you have 10 drivers, why not work to make 8 of them dedicated route drivers and 2 of them working in the OTR market? That way, if you have a bad month in the OTR market, 80% of your sales is still steady and stable. Now, as you're building your sales projections, I would add your individual dedicated routes together, which essentially is just a number of miles per month times the rate per mile for that particular route. Then for the OTR routes, you're going to have to estimate the number of miles that you're going to get per month times the spot rate per mile. And then just add the dedicated route revenue plus your OTR route revenue together to come up with total sales. Now let's jump into your gross profit margin. In trucking, there are a bunch of variable expenses that you're going to incur with each mile that you drive. The Trucker's Report put together some really great information that gives us a whole bunch of industry average expenses. And so your variable expenses based on this Trucker's Report document would be 54 cents per mile for fuel, 24 cents per mile for just the cost of the truck, 36 cents per mile for your driver cost, 12 cents per mile for repairs and maintenance, 5 cents per mile for insurance, 3 cents per mile for tires, and 2 cents for permits, licenses, and tolls as well. So when you add all of these variable expenses together, you get $1.38 per mile. Now keep in mind, these expenses can change over time, especially your fuel cost per mile, which is your largest variable expense. Obviously, fuel prices go up and down, and so keep that in mind as you're working on your projections here. Now, in order to determine your gross profit margin, you need to know your revenue per mile that you're going to charge to your customers. And according to a survey by Trucker Path, the revenue per mile that you can expect can really range widely depending on the specific route. And that can range from $1.50 per mile to up to $4 per mile. So let's just say your average rate per mile is $3. Now, if your variable cost per mile is $1.38, then to calculate your gross profit margin, take $1.38 divided by $3, and that gives you 46%. So then 100% minus 46 is 54% gross profit margin. So we've talked about sales and gross profit. Now the final piece of the profitability puzzle is really your overhead expenses. Your overhead expenses are those expenses that you have whether you drive a single mile today or not. So this would be things like rent, utilities, your phone bill, and other fixed expenses that are always going to be there whether you drive or have no work to do. Now let's say those expenses add up to $2,500 per month. Now we've got all the pieces that we need to figure out what it's going to take for you to be profitable. So I'm going to take you back to high school algebra class to try to calculate your break even. So now to determine when you break even, the calculation will be monthly sales times your gross profit margin minus your overhead expenses equals 0. And why 0? Because when this equation equals 0, that means you're breaking even. You're not making a profit, but you're not losing any money. And now if you remember from algebra class, in order to calculate how much in sales we need to generate to break even, we can add 2,500 to 0 and then divide by 54%, which is our gross profit margin. And we'll be left with the sales amount we need to break even. So in this example, that is 2,500 divided by 54% equals $4,630 in sales required to break even. Now let's say you go through your sales projections process and you don't think you're going to be able to hit $4,630 in monthly sales. You do have a couple options. You can find ways to reduce your overhead expenses, or you can try to find ways to increase your gross profit margins, like finding better routes with higher paying rates per mile. Now, once you're profitable, there is still one major concern, and that's cash flow. Trucking companies typically struggle with cash flow because you likely will have to provide payment terms to your customers. So you might deliver a load and not get paid for 30 days. And while you're waiting to get paid, you need to continue paying your driver, you need to continue paying for fuel and repairs and maintenance that pop up. And the other major challenge with cash flow is that you could have major repairs that might need to be made to a truck that's not only going to hurt your cash flow due to the repair cost, but it also takes your truck off the road, so you're not earning additional income while it's off the road. So my advice, you need to have at least 3 months of operating expenses in the bank before you start your business so that you can weather any cash flow storm. So there's the crash course on projecting your break-even for your trucking business. And now we have a financial projection template built specifically for trucking companies that is going to help you lay out all of these costs and sales assumptions and just make this a lot easier for you. So next, I'm going to dive into the details of our template and actually show you how to build out your financial projections.